Hello students, this is the wasteland of T.S. Eliot. You are able to see the wasteland of T.S. Eliot? That very modern wasteland we all are compelled to live in. Eliot, as we know, is the master of modern poetry. His poems are insight to the lives of people in the modern age. His complicated poems delve deep in the modern issues. Also, his impersonal poetry quite well deals with the problems of people in the 20th century. The poet looks at the modern life as gloomy and meaningless. Eliot has his own unique style of writing that you will study in The Wasteland as well. His lengthy poem, The Wasteland, exhibits the scholastic approach of the poet. The poet shows that T.S. Eliot was a widely read person. Further, we will discuss the first part of the poem, The Burial of the Dead. As the title suggests, it is talking about our dead civilization. It refers to the practice among Christians to bury the dead in the hope that there will be resurrection, there will be recreation, there will be rebirth. But nowadays, in the absence of religion, this process of recreation or rebirth is in doubt, and that doubt, uncertainty, and emptiness is very well pictured and portrayed in The Wasteland's first part, The Burial of the Dead. This single part in itself is divided in various parts that convey, however, the same idea that the modern world is now becoming time and again the wasteland that the poet T.S. Eliot hates. So we start with The Burial of the Dead. The Burial of the Dead is the first of 5 sections that make up The Wasteland, T.S. Eliot's landmark modernist poem. As you all know, what follows is a short analysis of this opening section with the most curious, interesting aspects of Eliot's poem highlighted. What we intend in the audio is to provide a brief summary of what happens in The Burial of the Dead, but we will stop and analyze those features which are especially significant as we go and point out the meaning of the most important allusions. In summary, Eliot's poem opens famously with the declaration that April is the cruelest month. Listen please. April is the cruelest month. This is because we are told flowers and plants grow as you would expect from springtime, but they grow out of the dead land. Few people would probably name April as the cruelest of the 12 months, so immediately Eliot's poem, possibly recalling and overturning the opening line of Chaucer's journal prologue to the Canterbury Tales, is out to surprise us with the unexpected. Here we found the reference to Chaucer's work, the Canterbury Tales, in which he has appreciated the month of April. In contrast, Eliot has presented April as the cruelest month. An unknown speaker claims that April is the cruelest month, even though we might usually think of spring as a time of love. But if you are lonely, seeing flowers blooming, people kissing might make you even more depressed about your memory and desire. The spring rain might normally bring new life, but for you, it only stirs dull roots. Also, you might want to note how Eliot really works the poetic technique of enjambment to carry each phrase over the line breaks with extra participles or ing words, that is, breeding, like, mixing, stirring. Enjambment also is visible when the character Mary starts speaking to readers. She shares her childhood memories and tells how the rain shower of springtime was not able to make her cheerful at that time. She remembers about her childhood memories and recalls how a mug of coffee in the coffee house soothes her, how gossiping at that coffee house gives her a quality time. That from her point of view, the poet is telling you this. The speaker says that instead of spring being the best time of year, winter kept us warm, covering earth in forgetful snow. Please mark the usage forgetful. We all are living in the state of oblivion. Somewhere we know the reality, but we still like to live a forgetful life. These lines show that when it comes to feeling bad, it's better to be forgetful and also numb in your emotions, surviving on the little bits of joy in your life as if they were dried tubers from your potato cellar. And this is the fact if we consider this in modern context as well, when over 100 years have passed when this poem was published. We all try to be forgetful. We all try never to remember bad experiences and try to forget ourselves in small happiness concerned, or better say, related to our soothing things. This surprise continues when we are told that it was winter rather than spring or summer. That kept the speaker warm because it covered up the dead land in snow, which made him assuming rather tenuously that the speaker is male, forget the fact that it is a dead land, a wasteland. Dead here refers to not the physical death, but the spiritual death, death of our spirit, death of our liveliness. You can interpret it like that. After this vegetation myth, the poet describes the guilt love with two references, and shows how the guilt love means love that is related to physical aspect mainly, and that is done without considering norms of society. The poet is basically Puritan. He does not appreciate the laxity present in the society, and hence he says he is of the opinion that guilt love always gives anxiety. Instead of relaxation, it gives anxiety. In a way, love making is a pleasure giving activity that relaxes our stress, but guilt love does the opposite, and it is tragic that in our modern civilization we are more tilted towards guilt love. Poet criticizes this sort of love and accuses that this sort of love shows nothing but death of our spirit, again the barrenness of our spiritual level, barrenness of our land, the wasteland that we are making of this world. Next, the poet talks about Madame Sosostris. Madame Sosostris is a clairvoyant who tells fortune with the help of cards, pack of cards. T.S. Eliot Wasteland presents Madame Sosostris as the tarot card reading psychic who bears bad news. She mostly gives bad news. While this stanza has been interpreted in a myriad of ways, two important features are commonly regarded as Eliot's intent. We will consider these 2 points. What Eliot wants to say with this part. First, see the pic, or you can say image, better say image of Madame Sosostris. She is shown as a fortune teller. Why people prefer fortune telling? Because of insecurity for their future. They try to convince themselves that their future is secure. No doubt this is a futile effort on their part, but still they do because they are anxious, as Eliot always says. Modern man is suffering from anxiety. That is true in our age too. And so people like Madame Sosostris are able to do their business. The clairvoyant, now the 2 points we were talking about this section. First is, the clairvoyant is considered the wisest woman in Europe because the world is a tattered wasteland where everyone is in search of answers. A fortune teller provides false security with her seemingly absolute understanding of destiny, and everyone is desperate enough to believe her. Why everyone is desperate? That we earlier discussed, that everyone is feeling insecure. We are not living in present, we are insecure for our future. Second point that Eliot wants to convey is, because Eliot regards fortune telling as little more than empty consolation for the desperate, he writes with levity to poke fun at the concept. In totality, we can say that Eliot is not in the favor of fortune telling as is represented by the character of Madame Sosostris and her pack of cards, that the pack of cards that have card of drowning sailor, belladonna, the lady of situations, blank card that shows the barrenness of the land, and the hanged man card, one-eyed merchant whose one eye refers to commerce and one eye that is not able to see is symbolic of inability to find religion in our life. Eliot is of the view that when business exists, religion vanishes. Then Eliot, in Eliot's poem, next follows a section which returns us to the wasteland of the poem's title. What grows out of this dead land, as the title suggests. Here that surprising opening to begin to make even more sense. There is a sense of fear, uncertainty regarding the future, about what is going to grow out of the blasted land. The reference is to First World War here. This can be taken metaphorically as a reference to devastation caused by the First World War. First World War fought in between 1914 to 1919 with so many to the devastation caused by the First World War. Reference here is to the devastation caused by the First World War with so many people dead in just a few years. Not just the millions of casualties in WWT itself, means World War First, WW1, but also the many millions of people who succumbed to Spanish flu. That was a flu that spread in between 1918-19 and what will future bring? How can a civilization rebuild itself in the face of such drastic devastation? Really questionable these things are that Eliot put forward in a very impressive manner. The speaker remembers watching a crowd flowing over London Bridge like zombies and says he had not thought death and undone so many. Here, Eliot is definitely talking about the circles of hell in Dante's Inferno. He is basically quoting the poem here another reference you are studying here is comparing modern life to living in hell. You know where all the dead people are. The people in this scene are sighing, staring, more infernal allusions. These are only at the ground in front of their feet. They seem pretty unsatisfied with their undead lives. If you ask, maybe they should take a zombie self-actualization course at the local Zen center. These lines are not mine. These are taken from some reference. Okay, so this interpretation is like this. The speaker mentions a landmark street in London and notes how a church bell of an actual church let out a dead sound on the final stroke of 9. Here the reference is to 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock is the time when everyone is ready to do work in office or some workplace. There we go again, associating religion and death. And when we are out for work, we forget each and everything. Some other source. We forget what about our poet wants to say in this promises. The speaker shifts again. The poet this time to here. Someone. The language of this peering out over an unreal from somewhere or fake. So leave the whose brown fog suggests that it isn't the cleanest of places. The phrase "unreal city" is actually a reference to Charles Baudelaire, a 19th century French poet whose collection, name is written here, brought light to the unsavory sexual practices and indulgent lifestyles of the poet's time, just like Eliot does in The Waste Land. The speaker remembers watching a crowd flowing over London Bridge like zombies, says he had not thought death and undone so many. Here, Eliot is definitely talking about the circles of hell in Dante's Inferno, who is basically, and the circle of hell is referred in the poem as limbo. He is basically quoting the poem here and is comparing modern life to living in hell, you know, where all the dead people are, where all dead people live. The burial of the dead section ends on a pretty gruesome note in which the speaker claims that he saw someone he knew from an ancient war. He named the name of the character that is presented in this section is Stetson in the flowing zombie crowd and asked him if the corpse he planted last year in his garden has begun to sprout. Normally, we think of burying the dead in order to get them out of sight, but this speaker is so demented that he thinks planting a body in the ground is like planting a seed that is supposed to grow. The speaker then gives Stetson man advice about keeping the dog and the frost away from where the corpse is planted. You can interpret the frost as adverse physical conditions and dog as adverse impacts that we may have on our spirit, on spiritual side of our personality. In a very nice and you can say in a very laborious manner, T.S. Eliot has presented what he thinks about the modern civilization. He has presented the barrenness of the land. He has presented how this land has become nothing better but a wasteland.